The forest was silent when the Alpha scented her for the first time. A hint of wild jasmine and danger. Kieran Blackwood halted mid-stride, his senses suddenly overwhelmed. 20 years as Alpha of the Northern Territories had honed his instincts to razor sharpness, but nothing had prepared him for this ascent that called to something primal within him, something beyond reason or control. The Pack Council meeting he'd just left faded from importance. The border disputes, territory negotiations, and political maneuverings that had consumed his days dissolved into insignificance. There was only this scent-wild jasmine intertwined with something ancient and forbidden, and the inexplicable pull it exerted on his wolf. He turned toward the eastern woods, where the mist gathered thickest beneath the canopy of ancient pines. No Omega had ever affected him this way. No woman had ever made his wolf rise so close to the surface without his permission. Alpha, his second-in-command, Marcus, approached cautiously, noting the sudden tension in Kieran's broad shoulders. Is something wrong? Kieran's eyes flashed gold in the fading twilight. Return to the pack house. Tell them I'll be delayed. But the Northern Alliance meeting can wait, Kieran growled, already moving toward the tree line. Drawn by an invisible thread he wouldn't resist. Marcus knew better than to argue. The look on his Alpha's face was one he'd never seen before. Hunger mixed with something that resembled fear. Alone now, Kieran shed his formal jacket, loosened his tie, and followed her footprints through the black fog that had begun to settle over the forest floor. Each step echoed with a strange pull in his chest, as though his heart recognized something his mind could not yet comprehend. The forest grew denser, older, as he tracked her. These were the Forbidden Woods, the place where pack laws blurred and ancient magic still lingered. Few wolves ventured here willingly. Fewer still returned unchanged. She moved like a shadow, quick, beautiful, untouchable. Her trail wove between massive tree trunks and over moss-covered stones with a grace that spoke of familiarity. This was her domain, not his. Yet he couldn't stop himself from pursuing her deeper into territory, where even an Alpha's authority meant nothing. Hours passed. The moon rose, full and heavy, casting silver light through gaps in the canopy. The temperature dropped, but Kieran barely noticed, his body burning with the hunt, with need, with something he'd never experienced in his 35 years. The trees finally thinned, revealing a clearing where a river cut through the forest, its waters black and gleaming under the moonlight. And there she stood, ankle-deep in the rushing current. For back to him, when he finally caught a glimpse of her by the moonlit river. Her silver hair glowed like something sacred, not the white blonde of age, but the pure, luminescent silver of old magic. It cascaded down her back, unbound and wild, reaching almost to her waist. She wore a simple dress of deep blue, torn at the hem and frayed at the sleeves. Not the clothing of his pack, nor of any neighboring territory he recognized. She was an outsider, unknown, and yet his wolf growled one truth that resonated through his entire being. Mine. The word formed in his mind with such force that Kieran nearly staggered. Never had his wolf been so certain, so demanding. Even as Alpha, he had maintained control over his instincts, never allowing them to rule him. But this was different. This was destiny, asserting itself with a violence that left him breathless. He stepped forward, a twig snapping beneath his boot. The sound was barely audible above the rush of the river, but she tensed immediately, her head tilting slightly as she looked over her shoulder. Her eyes weren't soft, they were cold, ancient, hiding a secret that made even the Alpha's heart stutter. They were the color of storm clouds, silver gray and flecked with violet eyes that had seen centuries pass, eyes that held knowledge no mortal should possess. Recognition flashed across her features, followed quickly by something that resembled resignation, not fear. This woman feared nothing, certainly not him, but a deep, weary acceptance, as though she had played this scene countless times before. You shouldn't be here, Alpha, she said, her voice like smoke and honey. These woods are not for your kind. Kieran stepped closer, drawn by an invisible force. And what kind would that be? The living, she replied simply. A chill ran down his spine, but he refused to retreat. You know who I am. Kieran Blackwood, Alpha of the Northern Territories, descendant of the first pack, bearer of the Blood Moon blessing. She recited his titles with casual indifference. Yes, I know who you are, yet I don't know you. He moved closer still until he stood at the river's edge. Your scent, it doesn't belong to any pack I recognize. A sad smile touched her lips. I belong to no pack, Alpha. Not anymore. What's your name? He demanded, his alpha authority seeping into his voice without conscious thought. She laughed then, a sound like breaking glass, beautiful and dangerous. Your commands have no power over me. I answer two forces, far older than your bloodline. Kieran's wolf surged forward, bristling at the challenge. He fought to maintain control, fascinated and frustrated in equal measure. Then tell me your name, because I ask it of you. Not as Alpha, but as a man who needs to know. Something shifted in her expression, surprise, perhaps, or curiosity. Lyra, she said, after a long moment. Though names have little meaning where I come from. And where is that? Lyra. She turned fully to face him then, and Kieran's breath caught. She was beautiful in a way that transcended conventional attraction, her features sharp and delicate, her skin pale as moonlight, her presence radiating power that called to his own. She was small compared to his towering frame, yet she stood before him without a trace of submission. Somewhere you can never follow, she answered. Somewhere you should pray you never see. She stepped out of the water, her bare feet leaving no imprint on the damp earth, a detail that sent another chill through Kieran's body. As she moved past him, her scent enveloped him again, stronger now, making his head spin with desire and warning in equal measure. Without thinking, he reached for her arm. Wait. The moment his fingers brushed her skin, a jolt of electricity shot through him. Visions, flashing behind his eyes, blood on snow, a crown of thorns, a wolf with violet eyes howling beneath a crimson moon. He jerked back, stunned. Lyra's expression darkened. Now you've done it, she whispered. Now you're bound. Bound to what? He demanded, his heart racing. To me, she said simply, to whatever fate awaits us both. She turned away, continuing into the forest, her steps silent on the fallen leaves. Kieran stood frozen, torn between the rational part of his mind screaming warnings, and his wolf urging him to follow. To claim to possess, she whispered to the wind, not knowing he could hear her one day. He will regret wanting me. But his enhanced hearing caught every word, and still, he could not stop himself from following her deeper into the darkness. Something fundamental had shifted in his world, realigning his priorities, his desires, his very purpose. The pack, his responsibilities. The alliances he'd spent years building all receded in importance compared to the need to understand who what she was, and why his soul recognized her when his mind did not. As the night deepened around them, Kieran tracked her through the ancient forest, guided by her scent and the invisible thread that now seemed to connect them. His wolf was restless, eager, sensing that they pursued not just an omega, but their destiny. What he didn't yet understand was that destinies came with prices, and some were paid in blood. The hunt had begun, and neither predator nor prey fully understood the consequences that awaited them both. He cornered her in the abandoned throne room, dust dancing in the moonlight. 3 days had passed since their encounter by the river, 3 days of Kieran searching relentlessly, neglecting his duties, ignoring the concerned whispers of his pack. The scent of wild jasmine haunted his dreams, invaded his waking thoughts until he could focus on nothing else. The ruins of Castle Blackwood stood forgotten at the edge of his territoria, crumbling reminder of a time when werewolves ruled openly, before they retreated into the shadows of human civilization. No one came here anymore. Superstition kept even the bravest wolves away. Tales of ghosts and ancient curses were enough to preserve the solitude of this place. but Kieran knew she would be here. The pull in his chest had grown stronger as he approached the ruins, his wolf practically clawing beneath his skin to reach her. Moonlight streamed through the collapsed ceiling of what had once been the Great Hall, illuminating centuries of decay. Fallen stones, rotting tapestries, and the skeletal remains of a once mighty fortress surrounded him as he followed her scent. Deeper into the heart of the castle, he found her in the throne room, standing before the ancient seat of power, a massive chair, carved from a single piece of black stone, still intact despite the devastation around it. Her silver hair caught the moonlight, creating a halo effect that made her appear otherworldly. "You're persistent," Lyra said, without turning. "I thought I made it clear. You should stay away." "You did," Kieran acknowledged, moving closer. "But you must have known I wouldn't." Now she turned, those storm-gray eyes assessing him with ancient wisdom. "Falfas, always so certain of your desires, never considering the cost." She tried to walk past him, but he moved with supernatural speed, blocking her path. His arms came up on either side of her, palms flat against the cold stone wall, caging her between his body and the ancient stones. Even now, he was careful not to touch her, remembering the shock of their last contact. "Why do you run from me?" he asked, voice low, breath brushing her ear. The proximity was intoxicating. This close, her scent overwhelmed his senses. Wild jasmine mixed with something older, something that spoke of power and danger and secrets. His wolf strained toward her, recognizing something his human mind couldn't fully comprehend. "Because you don't know what I am," she whispered, trembling, not with fear, but with the weight of secrets. Kieran studied her face, noting the sorrow etched into features too young to carry such burden. "Then, tell me." Lyra laughed softly, the sound hollow in the empty throne room. "Would you believe me if I did? Would you accept what cannot be changed?" "Try me," he challenged. She met his gaze unflinchingly. "I am the last of the moon priestesses, the final guardian of the veil between your world and what lies beyond. I am the keeper of the balance, the one who ensures that death claims what is rightfully its own." Kieran's brow furrowed. "Moon priestesses are legends, stories, told to pups. All legends begin as truth," she countered. "My sisters and I maintained the natural order for centuries. We guided lost souls. We ensured the balance between life and death remained undisturbed." Her eyes darkened. "Until your ancestors decided we had too much power." The accusation hung between them, heavy with centuries of resentment. Kieran knew the stories, how the first alphas had united to eliminate threats to their dominion. The moon priestesses were said to have been among the first to fall. "That was hundreds of years ago," he said, carefully. "Time means little to those touched by the moon's oldest magic." Her gaze drifted to the throne. "I was there when your great-great-grandfather sat upon that chair. I watched as he ordered the slaughter of my sisters." Impossible, his rational mind argued. Yet his wolf recognized the truth in her words, sensed the ancient power that clung to her like a second skin. "If what you say is true," Kieran said slowly, "then why are you here now? Why reveal yourself to me?" Something vulnerable flickered across her face. "I didn't reveal myself. You found me. Against all odds, against all warnings, your wolf called to mine." His fingers brushed her cheek, slow, possessive. He couldn't help himself. The need to touch her overrode caution, overrode the memory of those disturbing visions. Her pulse quickened. His wolf howled. The moment their skin touched, a surge of fire shot through them. Both a forbidden bond awakening. Images flooded Kieran's mind. Lyra standing beneath a blood-red moon, wolves howling in agony around her. Lyra, with tears streaming down her face as she placed her hands on a dying child, drawing the pain into herself. Lyra, walking alone through centuries, watching the world change while she remained unchanged. He saw her purpose, her burden, her solitude, and he saw himself, somehow intertwined with her fate. When the visions cleared, he found himself on his knees before her, her hands cradling his face. Tears glistened in her eyes, turning them to liquid silver in the moonlight. "Now do you understand?" she whispered. "Now do you see why you should have stayed away?" Kieran rose, slowly, his decision already made. "I see a woman who has been alone too long. I see an Omega who calls to my wolf like no other. I see a future that terrifies and entices me in equal measure." She closed her eyes, fighting the warmth sinking into her heart. "If I fall for you, you will die. We all die eventually," he countered. Her eyes snapped open, fierce now. "Not like this. Not by my hand." She pulled away from him, wrapping her arms around herself. "The magic that preserves me demands balance. For every life extended, another must be taken. Those I love, those I truly bond with, they become the sacrifice." Understanding dawned cold and clear. "That's why you're alone. I've watched it happen too many times," she admitted, her voice breaking. "I've felt the magic pull the life from those I dared to care for. I won't do it again. I can't." Kieran moved toward her again, drawn by something stronger than fear. "What if it's different this time? What if there's a reason our paths crossed?" "There is a reason," she said bitterly. "There always is. The magic is cruel that wit brings me what I most desire, only to force me to destroy it. Or perhaps," he suggested, reaching for her hand, "it brings you what you need to finally break the cycle." She didn't pull away this time. When their fingers intertwined, the connection between them flared again, but gentler now, a warm current rather than a lightning strike. "You don't understand what you're risking," she whispered. "I'm Alpha," he said simply. "Risk is part of leadership. Not like this." Her free hand came up to rest against his chest, directly over his heart. "I can already feel it, the magic recognizing you as mine. It's beginning to mark you." "Then let it," he said, covering her hand with his own. "I've lived 35 years without finding what my wolf truly wants. Now that I've found you, I won't walk away." She shook her head, desperation in her eyes. "You're being foolish, perhaps," he smiled, bringing her hand to his lips. "But I've never claimed to be wise where my heart is concerned." And she would be the one to kill him. The thought echoed between them, unspoken but understood. The magic that kept her immortal demanded payment. It always had. Yet, as the moonlight bathed them both, as the dust continued its eternal dance around them, something shifted in the air, a whisper of possibility, a hint that perhaps this time could be different. Kieran pulled her closer, his arms encircling her small frame. She fit against him perfectly, as though created to be there. His wolf settled for the first time in days, content now that she was in his arms. "Stay with me," he murmured against her hair. "Just for tonight. We'll face tomorrow when it comes." Lyra hesitated, then slowly relaxed against him, allowing herself this moment of weakness, of hope. "One night," she agreed, softly. "But when the sun rises, I must go." He tightened his hold, knowing she was lying to him, to herself. The bond had begun. Neither of them could walk away now. Whatever fate awaited them, they would face it together. As the night deepened around the abandoned castle, Alpha and Priestess remained entwined in the moonlight. Two souls, connected across centuries of separation, unaware that their union had already set ancient prophecies in motion. In the distance, underrumbled, a warning of the storm to come. The night of the blood eclipse arrived. 7 days had passed since Kieran and Lyra's encounter in the throne room. 7 days of stolen moments, of whispered confessions, of a bond growing stronger, despite Lyra's desperate attempts to resist it. 7 days of Kieran's pack, watching their alpha change before their eyes, becoming more powerful, yet more distant. His focus turned inward to the connection that now defined his existence. 7 days of Lyra, feeling the ancient magic stirring within her, hungry for the sacrifice it would soon claim. The elders spoke of omens. The younger wolves sensed the tension in the air. Something momentous approached, something that would reshape their world forever. Marcus had been the first to notice the signs in the sky. "A blood eclipse comes," he'd warned Kieran, "the first in 5 centuries. The old texts speak of it as a time when the veil between worlds thins, when ancient powers awaken. Kieran had merely nodded, already aware. Lyra had told him what the eclipse meant, that it would strengthen her magic to its peak, that the pull to restore balance would become irresistible, that it would be the moment of greatest danger for them both. "I should leave," she had whispered against his chest the night before. "If I'm far from you, when the eclipse comes, perhaps the magic will choose another sacrifice." But Kieran had held her tighter, unwilling to release her, even to save himself. "We face this together," he'd insisted. There must be a way to break the cycle. Now, as the full moon rose, already darkening at its edge with the beginning of the eclipse, Kieran stood on the ancient battlefield where, centuries ago, the first alphas had slaughtered the moon priestesses, the place where it had all begun. The pack had followed him, despite his orders to stay behind. They formed a circle at the edges of the field, their eyes glowing in the darkness, some with fear, others with reverence. They sensed the significance of this night, even if they didn't understand it. The air crackled with energy as the eclipse progressed, the moon slowly turning the color of fresh blood. Kieran felt the power building around him, within him, connected to the bond he shared with Lyra. His wolf was restless, pacing beneath his skin, preparing for something it couldn't name. And then they came. Dark figures emerging from the forest at the far side of the field, hooded and silent. They moved with inhuman grace across the battlefield. The Lost Ones. Lyra had called them souls trapped between worlds, bound to the moon priestesses, waiting for the chance to claim what they believed was rightfully theirs. Alpha Marcus called in warning, stepping forward with claws extended. "Stay back," Kieran commanded, his alpha voice rippling across the field. "This is not your fight." The Lost Ones approached, dozens of them, their faces hidden in shadow. At their center walked a figure Kieran recognized, the elder priestess Lyra had spoken of, the one who had cursed her with immortality as punishment for showing mercy to a wolf child centuries ago. "Where is she?" the elder demanded, her voice like dry leaves scraping stone. "Where is the last of our sisters?" Kieran stood his ground. "She is under my protection." Laughter, cold and cruel, echoed across the battlefield. "Protection. You cannot protect her from what she is, from what she must do." The elders who'd fell back, revealing a face both ancient and ageless, eyes black as the void. The cycle must complete. Balance must be restored. "There are other ways to maintain balance," Kieran argued, remembering Lyra's teachings over the past week, how she had shown him the interconnectedness of all things, how death and life were merely different expressions of the same energy. "Naive wolf," the elder sneered. "The magic requires blood. It always has, and she will provide it, the blood of her mate, the blood of an alpha. A worthy sacrifice indeed." A growl built in Kieran's chest, his wolf responding to the threat. But before he could speak, flames erupted at the center of the field. Blinding, tinged with silver and violet, she emerged from the flames, shifting mid-step, her wolf glowing with a power older than the moon itself. Lyra's wolf form was unlike any Kieran had seen, silver-white, with markings the color of twilight, eyes glowing with ancient magic. She was smaller than his massive black wolf, yet power radiated from her, in waves that made even the Lost Ones step back. She positioned herself between Kieran and the elder, her message clear. He was hers to protect. The elder raised her hands, dark energy gathering at her fingertips. "You defy the natural order. Sister, you know the price of such defiance." Lyra shifted back to human form, her dress materializing around her body, her silver hair whipping in a wind that seemed to affect only her. "The natural order," she challenged. "Was it the natural order when you bound us to this curse, when you twisted our sacred duty into this perversion of balance?" The elder's face contorted with rage. "You were always weak, always questioning. The magic requires sacrifice. Is not our place to question which lives it claims." "It is precisely our place," Lyra countered, her voice carrying across the battlefield. "We were guardians of the balance, not mindless servants to a corrupted magic. As they argued, Kieran felt something changing within him. The bond between him and Lyra pulsed with each beat of his heart, growing stronger as the eclipse reached its zenith. He could feel her emotions, her fears, her desperate love for him and her determination to end this cycle. Even at the cost of her own existence, he staggered toward her, blood seeping from a wound he hadn't noticed, receiving the magic already beginning its work, already claiming its sacrifice. "You were meant for me," he said, broken. "Why keep running?" Tears gleamed in her eyes, beautiful, devastating. She turned to him, momentarily ignoring the threat behind her. "I wasn't meant to love you," she whispered. "I was meant to end you." But when he reached out his hand, she took it. Her destiny trembled. The moment their hands connected, the blood eclipse reached totality. The moon hung above them, crimson and ominous, bathing the battlefield in bloody light. The lost ones moaned, sensing the culmination of centuries of waiting. The elder raised her arms. "It is time. Take what is yours." The lost ones surged forward, but Lyra and Kieran stood unmoved, their joined hands glowing with a light that grew brighter with each passing second. "The sacrifice must be made," Lyra said softly, looking into Kieran's eyes. "But it doesn't have to be you." Understanding dawned in his eyes. "Lyra, no, I choose to sacrifice the immortality that was forced upon me," she declared, her voice rising above the chaos. "I choose to reclaim my mortality, to live one lifetime fully rather than countless lifetimes alone." The elder screamed in rage. "You cannot. The magic requires death." "It requires balance," Lyra corrected. "And what better balance than for an immortal to choose mortality, for death delayed to finally be embraced?" She turned to face the elder, still holding Kieran's hand. "I release you," she said to the lost ones. "I release us all from this corrupted covenant." The light between their joined hands exploded outward, a shockwave of pure energy that knocked everyone, wolves and lost ones alike, to the ground. Only Lyra and Kieran remained standing, at the center of a storm of magic that rewrote centuries of curse with a single act of sacrifice. The elder's scream faded as her form dissolved, the lost ones following, not destroyed, but finally released to whatever waited beyond the veil they had been trapped behind for so long. As the light receded, Lyra collapsed into Kieran's arms, suddenly lighter somehow, the ancient weight lifted from her shoulders. He held her tightly, feeling the change in her, the magic still present but transformed, no longer demanding death but embracing life instead. "What have you done?" he whispered against her hair. She looked up at him, her eyes still storm-gray, but now fully mortal. The centuries of knowledge tempered with something new, hope. "I chose us," she said simply. "I chose one lifetime, with you, over eternity alone." The blood eclipse began to wane, the moon slowly returning to its natural silver. Around them, the pack approached cautiously, sensing that something fundamental had changed in their Alphanon, in the woman he held. Two hearts, one destined to kill, one destined to love, had rewritten their fate together. Marcus was the first to approach, kneeling before them both. "Alpha," he acknowledged Kieran, then turned to Lyra with newfound respect. "Fluna," the title given to the Alpha's mate. The female leader of the pack hung in the air between them. Lyra's eyes widened, then softened as she looked at Kieran. "Is that what I am to be?" she asked quietly. "You're Luna." Kieran smiled, the weight of near-death making his appreciation for this moment all the sharper. "You are whatever you choose to be. But yes, I would have you as my mate, my Luna, my heart, if you'll have me." She laughed then, the sound no longer broken, but full of joy. "After all this, do you think I could choose otherwise?" As the pack gathered around them, as the night sky returned to normal above, Kieran and Lyra stood at the center of a new beginning. The priestess, who had been destined to destroy him, had instead saved them both, transforming an ancient curse into a blessing through the simple, profound power of choice. The Alpha had hunted her heart, unaware that in finding it, he would help her reclaim her own humanity and, in doing so, forge a bond that even death could only temporarily interrupt, never truly break. For in choosing mortality, Lyra had not chosen death over life. She had chosen to truly live, for however long they had together. And in the end, that was the greatest magic of all. 1 year later, Kieran stood at the edge of the rebuilt castle gardens, watching as Lyra moved among the pack children, teaching them the ancient ways of respecting the moon and its cycles. Her silver hair, now streaked with a single strand of ordinary brown, a mark of her newfound mortality, caught the sunlight as she laughed, more carefree than he had ever seen her. The children adored their Luna, gathering around her like moths to flame, drawn to the gentle wisdom she shared so freely now that she was no longer burdened by centuries of isolation and grief. The northern pack had flourished under their joint leadership, Kieran's strength complemented perfectly by Lyra's ancient knowledge. Together, they had forged new alliances, healed old wounds, and created something unprecedented, a pack that honored both the wolf's wildness and the moon's magic in equal measure. And though they both knew their time together was finite now, bound by the natural lifespan Lyra had chosen, there was beauty in that limitation, a preciousness to each moment that immortality could never provide. As Kieran watched his mate place a protective hand over her slightly rounded belly, feeling through their bond the flutter of new life growing within her, he knew with absolute certainty that he would never regret being hunted by the heart that had been destined to destroy him, only to save him instead.